Chapter 1 left one broken world. The chattering of birds pressed into his ears like needles made of sunlight. Sasuke groaned, pulling the blanket tighter around his shoulders. But the warmth couldn't shield him from the unwanted presence at the edge of his bed. A crow, black as ink, stared at him. "Still here," he muttered. The crow ruffled its feathers and cawed once. "It's always been here. From the moment I opened my eyes in this gilded prison of a life. That damn crow's been lurking, perched somewhere close." The door slid open with the soft whisper of wood against wood. "Good morning, young Lord Rui." A familiar voice, calm and comforting, like a mother's embrace. "I've already heated the bath for you, my lord. 3 months since I woke up in this weak, borrowed body, one that used to belong to someone named Rui Huo Yuanjia. I'm Sasuke Uchiha, but they call me young lord now, like I'm supposed to know what that means." The crow hopped closer, head tilting, beak slightly agape. Mocking? He could never tell. They never acknowledge the crow. Not once. It sits there like a shadow with feathers, and they just carry on, blind, or pretending to be. Maybe they really can't see it. The woman stepped inside. Her black hair was tied neatly with a red ribbon, and her dress, a deep red with golden embroidery, flickered like firelight. Embroidered flames curled along the hem. "Ying Yue, thank you." She blinked in surprise before smiling softly. Maybe the old Rui wasn't so courteous. If I keep acting like this, they'll notice. What kind of little brat was I supposed to be, anyway? Sasuke threw the covers aside and stood. The wooden floor creaked beneath his bare feet. He approached the bath. In the polished bronze mirror, a boy stared back, pale, a faded yellow tint to the boy's eyes, and hair the familiar shade of black. The crow tapped its claws against the window frame. Sasuke met its gaze. It stared back. "TCH. Do what you want," he muttered, turning away. After bathing, steam clung to his skin, warm but fleeting. Ying Yue returned, cradling folded robes the color of dusk, deep maroon trimmed in gold, with the swirling crest of the Lishan clan stitched into the back. She knelt and helped him dress with practiced care. "There," she said, trying to mask the concern in her voice. "You look strong today, my lord." Sasuke muttered, "Even now, I hate relying on someone. I became strong. So why am I here, living like an invalid under the care of a stranger? What's next? Encouragement to pee." Ironically, that had already happened. During his first month, Ying Yue had indeed helped him with personal matters. Then he turned to the doors. He gripped the handle. Push. Nothing. The door barely moved. His fingers strained, but this fragile body was not the same vessel that once withstood lightning and fire. He was strong, but not here. "Young Master Huo Yuanjia, be careful," Ying Yue cried, rushing forward. With ease, she pushed the doors open. "I'm fine," he muttered. The hallway greeted them with polished wood, soft light, and a long stretch of silence. Sasuke stepped forward slowly, his feet brushing against silk-woven rugs. Every step felt off balance, like wearing armor 2 sizes too small. And then, the stairs. Servants bowed, but their eyes lingered. Disgust, veiled behind politeness. Concern, behind duty. Some looked as if simply seeing him stirred memories they'd rather forget. Their eyes spoke. "Why is the sick boy walking again? He should be in bed." "So this is our lord. He can barely stand. Is he even a Lishan?" "They say he came from the outside, brought nothing but misfortune." Ying Yue hovered beside him, shielding him from their whispers. "Are you sure you're all right to walk, my lord?" she asked gently. "You mustn't exceed your limits. Your condition." "I'm fine," he said more firmly. "I need the walk." One nearby servant dipped his head, but not out of respect. It was submission. Or fear. As if this boy before him was something that shouldn't be standing. Sasuke didn't add the truth. That the body he now wore had once died quietly in its sleep. That Rui Huo Yuanjia, whatever soul he had, was long gone. But this body is way too young to die, and if I'm meant to be dead, it's incredibly horrifying to stare at a living corpse. And he, Sasuke Uchiha, had taken his place. Now, he bore the title of clan leader of the Lishan. A noble house with deep roots tied to the throne. In the Fire Nation, royal blood wasn't enough. Marriages into old clans like the Lishan ensured power stayed burning from both ends. What kind of power does the Lishan clan hold? The power of lightning. Ying Yue once told me of my ancestor, Zhu Pingyin, the outlaw, the insurgent, the pure blue fire. He led the Yellow Neck uprising with lightning in his hands and fury in his heart, raising a vast army and leaving ruin across the Earth Kingdom. When he was finally defeated by Fire Lord Taiso, he was not executed. Instead, Taiso recognized the rarity of his gift. As both reward and containment, Zhu Ping'an was granted a clan name, Lishan, and tasked with teaching the art of lightning generation to future firebenders. And now, at 12, he carries the burden of a legacy he doesn't understand. Expected to teach lightning generation, though he has no idea how. Ever since his reincarnation, he has been feared, pitied, and surrounded by whispers and silk. A stranger in a body. A foreign soul in a world not his own. And above all that, he still had to figure out why. Every step Sasuke took made him feel disoriented, like walking on rough, uneven pavement along an abandoned road. He moved slowly, like a newly born fawn, each step cautious, unfamiliar. This body, Rui's body, was fragile, untrained, still recovering from death itself. He stepped into the courtyard and sank onto the grass. It was warm beneath him, sun-soaked, soft. Silence stretched out. The wind moved gently around him. Birds chirped. Leaves rustled. And suddenly, he was somewhere else. He remembered the wind cutting past his face as he raced through the trees. The distant echo of laughter, Naruto's dumb grin, Sakura's nagging, Kakashi's tired aloofness. Missions. Chores. Guard duty. Meaningless tasks in a broken world. He used to think it was all a stepping stone, just a way to grow stronger. But it wasn't strength they wanted him to gain, it was obedience. So he ran. He saw the 9 tails with his own eyes, felt its chakra suffocate the sky. And instead of fear, he felt envy. Power like that couldn't be ignored. It had to be controlled. Claimed. He remembered the Valley of the End. Naruto, surrounded by steam and rage, transformed by ancient fury. They fought. And in that final clash, he knew, Naruto had held back. That stung more than any wound. Still, he left. Took the curse mark. Took the pain. Took everything Orochimaru offered and asked for more. The old Sasuke died under that training, bent, broken, and reforged into a weapon. Then came the truth. Not just about Itachi, but about the village. The elders. The Hokage. The heroes in masks who slaughtered the Uchiha in the dark, pretending it was peace. They twisted Itachi into a butcher so they could keep their thrones clean. Let him drown in blood so they could sleep at night. They didn't just kill his clan. They used his brother to do it. Sasuke had killed Itachi, his only family, and then learned he was never the real enemy. Now the real ones sit in power. Untouched. Applauded. Honored. They walk free while the Uchiha are bones under stone. This isn't about revenge anymore. It's about judgment. The world they built needs to fall. And if fire is the only way to cleanse it, then so be it. But now, this body couldn't even walk 10 steps without trembling. So, little brother, the voice came from nowhere. From everywhere. Has your conscience finally caught up to you? The voice was ice. Sasuke stiffened, eyes widening. Behind the glass stood a crow, draped in black, its red eyes glowing like coals under moonlight. The voice that followed struck deeper than the cold. You're still weak, just like you've always been. Itachi. That's impossible. I killed him. I watched him die. I felt it, that moment, his hand on my forehead, that was real. So how? How are you alive? Sasuke whispered. Suddenly, something shoved him backward. The grass beneath him turned cold. The golden sun dimmed, red, unnatural. Shadows stretched. And then, black. Somewhere, in the space between thoughts and sleep, the world shifted. Freezing cold. The air reeked of death and memory, rot, moss, leather, and the acrid sweetness of food gone just slightly bad. Yeast, feathers, fur, a foul, humid scent clung to everything. He looked up. From the blackness blinked a single, blood-dark eye. As large as Sasuke's face, it opened slowly from a leathery, wrinkled socket. Because you're weak, little brother. You've always been weak. And you still cling to that weakness like a child clings to a mother's robe. The gargantuan crow towered above him. Its wings expanded, endless, suffocating, a living shadow threatening to engulf him whole. Sasuke closed his eyes. And just like that, it vanished, nothing remained. Sasuke's fists trembled, clenched tight. Nails dug into flesh. His breath came fast and ragged. Ying Yue arrived swiftly, the hem of her silks whispering as she knelt beside him. Young Lord Rui, what's wrong? Are you having trouble breathing? Sasuke didn't answer immediately. He stared at the ground, the world still wrong in his eyes. Cold sweat beaded at his temple. I can't feel my arms. like I'm standing at the bottom of a vast ocean, the weight of thousands of fathoms pressing down on me. Ying Yue, his loyal attendant, had never seen him like this. He'd always been distant, even resentful, yes, but never so shaken. She laid a hand gently on his shoulder, her voice softer this time. "You're safe. It's all right. Just breathe, my lord." "Still alive, brother?" The voice sliced through the air like a blade dipped in honey. "I thought you followed your father to hell. It would have suited you." A young girl stood with a soft, confident smile. Her large golden eyes gleamed with quiet fire. Her dark hair was tied into a small, precise topknot, held by a silver flame-shaped pin, not yet gold. Still a child. She wore a ceremonial training uniform tailored for royalty in training, deep red with gold trim. Sasuke, still lost in his stupor, narrowed his eyes. Is this truly a memory, or another illusion? Another cruel trick of the crow? The line between recollection and illusion blurred. Once again, he found himself questioning reality. Ying Yue rose and bowed with controlled grace. "Good morning, Princess Azula. With all due respect, is it not a bit unkind to speak so ill of the living?" Azula tilted her head with amusement, then turned her gaze back to Sasuke. "Brother, does this servant speak for you? Are you keeping your leash that loose?" She stifled a giggle behind her palm. "Careful. Even loyal hounds can bare their teeth when they forget who feeds them." Before Sasuke could reply, another voice rang out. "Enough, Azula." A tall, elegant woman entered from the far side of the courtyard. Her long black hair was swept into a regal top bun, adorned with a golden flame ornament. Her eyes, brown, steady, and sorrowful, held command without needing to raise her voice. Her layered Fire Nation robes shimmered with authority in every red fold. "Who's this woman? She looks familiar." Without protest, Azula turned and left, her retreat marked by the sharp clicks of her steps. Ying Yue bowed deeply. "Your Highness, Queen Ursa. What brings you here?" Ursa, wife of Prince Ozai, son of Fire Lord Azulon. Technically, not a queen, but some palace staff used the title out of reverence. So she and Azula are related. I can't see the resemblance. Azula's more spoiled milk than royal blood. Ursa offered a soft smile. "I'm sorry, Ying Yue. My daughter can be blunt." "No apology is needed, Your Highness. Children's faults rarely lie with the child." Ying Yue's lips went still. She immediately stiffened. I meant no offense. I misspoke. Please forgive me." Ursa chuckled gently, waving it off. "It's all right, Ying Yue. I only wonder where I went wrong. When Azula was younger, she was such a helpful little girl, then her eyes flickered to Sasuke. Something in her expression shifted, not pity, but something quieter. "Recognition. I must be going. Court matters await." Without another word, Ursa turned and departed. Ying Yue dropped to her knees without hesitation, wrapping her arms tightly around Sasuke. As if by holding him, she could shield him from ghosts. "Don't listen to her. Princess Azula doesn't know the truth. Your father is still fighting, for his country, for honor, for you. Don't ever believe what she says." She pulled back just enough to cup his face. Her silken sleeves fell like petals around his shoulders. "Do you understand?" she asked softly. Her golden brown eyes met his. Sasuke nodded slowly, not out of belief, but because he knew it was what she needed. And yet, something twisted inside him. He had never seen devotion like this. Not unbound. Not offered without cost. In Konoha, those who bowed did so with hidden motives. Respect soaked in fear. Smiles hiding ambition. Even the talk of rebuilding the Uchiha was never about him. It was about bloodlines. A future they could control through him. They saw a symbol. A name. A tool. Not a child. Not a person. Even Konoha, the so-called village of harmony, had erased his clan in the name of order. Left one child alive, not out of mercy, but utility. So he could suffer. So he could carry their sins forward like a cursed torch. So this woman, this Ying Yue, her warmth, her loyalty, her eyes that held no bargain, it didn't make sense. And that made her dangerous. He leaned back, just slightly. Enough to remind her he wasn't fooled. "Once I recover, I'm leaving." "Thank you," he said quietly. "As long as I cut the strings, no one will ever control me again." Sasuke took a step back. His expression remained unreadable and distant. Like there was an invisible chalk line drawn between him. One Ying Yue was never meant to cross. Ying Yue didn't push. She simply stepped back, respecting the boundary. "We should head back," she said softly. "You've been out too long. You could get a sunburn. She stood and offered a hand. Sasuke didn't take it. He walked past her without a word, heading toward his bedchambers, the crow following silently. Ying Yue hesitated, then followed behind. As they passed through the corridor, a few servants muttered just loud enough to be heard. He's in such a terrible state. I can't believe they have to deal with a failure like that. Is he even a firebender? What are noble families now? Just ornaments. Sasuke heard every word. It had been a long time since anyone dared speak to him like that. For years, he'd heard nothing but applause, the forced praise of a grateful village, ever since his puppet of a brother slaughtered their clan. He had been showered with affection. But it wasn't love. It was control. They wanted his eyes, that cursed bloodline, a new breed of loyal dogs, trained to sniff out rebellion and tear it apart. Even as a child, I heard whispers, "You're just the spare, not the heir." Father never looked at me the way he looked at my prodigy brother. I still remember it like it was yesterday. I was training beside my father, Fukagu Uchiha, on the edge of a dock. It was part of our daily routine, practicing the fireball technique, the technique every Uchiha must master to be recognized as an adult. That day, I finally produced something impressive. A torrent of flames erupted from my lips, forceful and wild. Like a campfire caught in a sudden gust, the flames stretching out as long as stacked logs. But father just stood there, arms crossed, his expression strained. "There's still room for improvement," he said flatly. "There are far greater torrents of fire you've yet to produce." Then he turned and walked away. I stayed there for several more hours, practicing alone. My throat was dry, my energy strained. That's when Itachi appeared, just finishing whatever duties he had for the day. He always brought something with him when he visited me. That day, it was food. He handed it to me with a small smile, one I still cherish more than anything else. "Eat up," he said. "How are you going to get stronger if you don't feel your fire?" I used to think he was a monster. Funny. Looking back now, it almost feels laughable. As he reached the door, Sasuke gave it a firm pull. Nothing. He pulled harder. Still nothing. He gritted his teeth and yanked with everything he had, muscles straining, breath hitching, his arms trembling under the effort. It felt like a cruel game of tug-of-war, except it was just him, and this damn door. "Lord Rui, please," Ying Yue said gently behind him. "Don't strain yourself. You're still recovering." She stepped forward and opened the door effortlessly with one smooth pull. Sasuke stared at the crow for a long moment. His jaw tightened. He mumbled under his breath, clutching his fists in silent anger, but he knew outbursts wouldn't change anything. He walked to his bed and lay there in silence looking up at the ceiling. "I can't even pull a door open on my own," he thought bitterly. "How can I expect to stand?" He felt more like a withered old man than the shinobi he once was. "I fought for power, for this. I lost everything I worked so hard to build." "Lord Rui, are you hungry?" Sasuke didn't respond. Ying Yue lingered for a moment longer. When she finally turned to leave, the only sound that followed was the soft click of the door closing behind her. Silence became his only companion. Then a harsh raspy caw, but tumultuous. It echoed through the room like a jagged needle in someone's neck, sharp enough to pierce bone. Sasuke's eyes darted left and right. Nothing. Except, there, beside the door, a crow. At first, it was the size of a man. But with each cry, louder than any crow should sound, it grew. First the size of a cabinet. Then a wardrobe. Then more. Now a gargantuan crow stood, black as the deepest of the cavern itself. Its wings were tucked close, yet its sheer size could dwarf the room. And somehow, Sasuke knew, if the room grew, the crow would grow with it. The crow would always be too big. It screamed again, that same broken, distorted cry, and the walls seemed to tremble with the sound. There was no silence left. Only the crow's voice. It watched him, head tilted and beak slightly agape, eyes burning coals, unblinking. Despite its monstrous size, it did not move. Not a single step forward, not a single step backwards. But it shook, and when it did, feathers rained. Stamp, stamp. They fell like snow, but each one struck the ground with weight. On the edge of the bed, on the nightstand, across the floor, the crow screamed again. It grew. Either the room shrank, or the crow expanded. It didn't matter. The walls pressed inward, furniture scraped across the floor, crushed by invisible weight. The air thickened, pressing into Sasuke's lungs like stone. He tried to jump out of bed, but his body wouldn't move. The crow's eyes held him there. Locked. Bound. Sasuke didn't know why. He only knew one thing: he couldn't look away. When silence reclaimed the room, it was broken only by the soft click of the door opening, followed by a gasp, then hurried footsteps. Lord Rui. Ying Yue's panicked voice cracked like a whip. What happened? Did someone break in? She dropped to her knees beside him, eyes wide with horror. Sasuke lay amid the wreckage, his hands bleeding, fingers curled like claws around nothing. The once pristine room was now an aftermath whirlwind disaster. Shards of the polished bronze mirror glinted across the floor. The silk sheets had been torn from the bed, tangled and crumpled. He had slammed his fists against the frame of the mirror until it tipped, until the reflection of that foreign face, that reminder, lay shattered at his feet. He struck whatever he could reach. He clawed at the silence until it tore his skin. Until pain was the only thing that felt real. Now, lying on the cold floor, Sasuke turned his head. One shard of the mirror lay nearby, long, curved, gleaming like a blade. He saw his reflection of a sickly boy who is locked inside hefty bars. Sasuke can only muster one sentence. Can you see the crow? Ursa had once played in what had felt like paradise. The ground had been soft sand, scattered with chunks of stone and sun-bleached shells, remnants of games long abandoned. The volleyball net still hung, sagging in the middle, caught in its slow surrender to time. Faintly, like an afterimage, she thought she could still smell it. The sweetness of coconut oil, the smoky scent of grilled fish drifting from a family of 4 laughing by the shore. To the right, she imagined where the dances once had been held. Music still seemed to linger in the air, the echo of joy clinging like sea mist, a palimpsest of unheard sound. And beneath it all, something stirred, an ache without shape or name, a memory soaked in loneliness and expectation. But the beach was long abandoned. Now, a group approached, a procession of marching soldiers. If their intentions had been made clear beforehand, it would have looked like an invasion. At their head walked an elderly figure, draped in robes of red and black. His pale as bone, long hair was tied into a high bun adorned with a flame-shaped ornament. His eyes were yellow, dull with age, yet still commanding. This was the Fire Lord. Beside him stood a younger man, tall and composed, a reflection of the elder in posture and presence. The difference lingered in his gaze, faintly cynical, with raven hair. This was the prince. And before them bowed a man in plain robes. The fabric was soft and earthy, more suited to fieldwork than to courtly ceremony. His voice rose with pride as he addressed the Fire Lord. Fire Lord Azulon, he said, my wife has raised a daughter even more beautiful than her flowers. Ursa stepped forward, following her father's order. Azulon's lips curled faintly. We had such trouble finding Avatar Roku's descendants, he said. It's as if he meant to keep you hidden from us. He regarded the girl with cool satisfaction, like a man appraising a long-laid plan. Then his voice deepened. But now, clearly, the effort was worthwhile. He turned to those assembled. The fire sages tell me that the union of the Avatar's granddaughter with my son will create a bloodline of immense power, one that will ensure the Fire Nation's rule for centuries after I am gone. The words struck the air like a stone dropped in water, stillness rippling outward. Then, with a wave of his hand, Azulon gestured to the man beside him. Ursa, he said, naming her at last, allow me to present Fire Prince Ozai, my second son. He has a proposal for you. Ursa. Lady Ursa. The voice broke through like a ripple over still water. Suddenly, Ursa snapped out of her daydream. The golden sands, once stretching endlessly in her mind's eye, had faded into stillness, replaced now by the soft gurgle of a pond. The countless soldiers who had once surrounded the Fire Lord and his son were now lost to the wind. In their place came the cool hush of a shaded garden. She blinked. Before her knelt a man in plain white robes, waiting silently by the water's edge. He said nothing, only bowed his head, hands folded in his lap, as if awaiting her response. Ursa straightened slightly, as if shaking off the memory's weight. She nodded once, graceful, composed, though her fingers tightened briefly around the folds of her robe. The man bowed lower, then rose. I apologize, Lady Ursa, he said gently. You were somewhere far away. She looked past him, past the dragon-shaped fountain and the neat hedges, to the stone walls. I was, she replied softly. So, what brings you here, Ying Chu? The servant bowed low before answering. The nightshade has been delivered, Lady Ursa. From within his robes, Ying Chu withdrew a tightly rolled cloth, white and smooth, tied with a thin thread of red string. He held it out with both hands, reverently. Ursa nodded, accepting the bundle with quiet care. Her fingers traced the fabric, as if memorizing the texture. Thank you, Ying Chu, she said. No need, my lady, he replied, bowing again. It was hidden, as you instructed. No eyes touched it but mine. So this is the inner hall of the royal palace, Sasuke muttered as he stepped through the wide, red double doors. Ying Yue nodded. Our ancestors built it within the heart of a dormant volcano. After the reunification, the first Fire Lord, Toz, rose to power. Before that, rival clans constantly waged war to claim territory and resources. Commoners were caught in the middle of these power struggles, their lives dictated by the whims of feuding warlords. It had been 4 months since Sasuke last asked for a change in his routine. Ever since the mirror-breaking incident, Ying Yue had honored his request, seeing small but steady signs of improvement in his health. Still, her brow remained furrowed. If you start to feel tired, I'll end the tour immediately, she warned, her voice firm. You're still recovering. Sure, Sasuke replied curtly, already walking ahead. Ying Yue followed close behind, still treating him like a fragile mirror perched on the edge of a cliff. The pillars stood deep red, each wrapped with a golden dragon that coiled downward in elegant spirals, its tail ending at the golden studs fixed at the base. The carpet stretched across the floor like a black scroll, its white patterns curling like vines and blooming into soft lotus flowers. Gas lamps lined the walls, their flames steady and warm, burning brighter than a well-kept campfire. Above, paper chandeliers swayed gently in the wind, casting soft shadows. Sasuke glanced up. The ceiling appeared black, though it was unclear whether it was painted or simply swallowed the light. To build inside a volcano, he thought, and seemingly without any excessive precautions, do they simply trust the mountain not to wake? Or do they think they can tame it? Ying Yue smiled faintly as she noticed his gaze drifting. We're on one of many islands in the Fire Archipelago, simply called the Fire Islands, she said. Why do we call it the Fire Islands? Sasuke asked suddenly, tilting his neck. Is it because we use fire? Ying Yue chuckled. Most of the islands are volcanic. Some are still active, others dormant. The soil is rich. We grow food in ash. We've made use of what others fear. That's why we're the strongest among the great nations. She finished with her chest lifted slightly, like someone proudly hanging a masterpiece on the wall, even if all she did was admire the work of those who came before. All the great nations? Sasuke asked, feigning curiosity. Ying Yue's face shifted, the enthusiasm drained. Still, she replied. Yes. There are 4 nations: fire, earth, water, and air, each tied to its respective element. Sasuke noted the simplicity. Either she was hiding something, or she simply didn't know more. They passed paintings along the corridor. Each depicted a regal figure in ceremonial robes, deep black with gold and red accents. Beneath each was a golden plaque. One caught his attention. He stepped closer and read aloud. Great Fire Lord Sozin, 58 BG 20 AG. He reformed and strengthened the Fire Nation, seeking to bring prosperity to many lands. Through the 100-Year War, Fire Lord Sozin gave everything in pursuit of unity. Sasuke stared at the plaque. Peace through war. That's one way to justify conquest. Ying Yue arrived beside him. This is the greatness of Fire Lord Sozin. To spread our influence across the nations is not tyranny, but destiny. He waited for the comet, once called the Great Comet, for the fire to reach its peak. Our firebending became unstoppable. That was the moment of our empire's rise, and now the Great Comet was named after him, Sozin's Comet. When this war is won, we will no longer be separate nations, only one empire. We have already seized the western territories of the Earth Kingdom. Our next advance is toward Ba Sing She. Sasuke's eyes narrowed. Liberation through fire. Unity through ash. How many had to burn for this peace? Why do you believe in this idea of peace? He asked, voice cold. Ying Yue responded without hesitation. This peace, Lord Rui, is born through enlightenment. We send grain, clean water, healing drafts across great distances. The Earth Kingdom can barely sustain itself. Sasuke glanced at the painting of Sozin, soldiers amassed at his feet. And yet, he said, you deem them primitive, while offering bread only after burning their fields. He stepped closer. We made the wound, Ying Yue. Now we dress it and expect him to kneel in gratitude. Ying Yue stepped in quickly. Her voice was soft but urgent. Lower your voice, Lord Rui. She nodded subtly toward a corridor where distant guards lingered. This is the inner palace. Words like those, spoken too freely, bring exile. Sasuke paused. The heat beneath his calm simmered like a forge. Is that what peace demands now? Silence, even when truth burns the tongue. There are ears in every shadow, Ying Yue whispered. Speak freely, yes, but not here. Sasuke exhaled, stepped back. Fine. But eventually, Ying Yue. Fire spreads, and truth doesn't stay buried forever. A low growl broke the silence. Sasuke blinked. His stomach. Ying Yue giggled, then sobered. We must feed your temperamental belly. Even light walking drains energy. She offered her hand. Sasuke ignored it, brushing past her. She sighed, following closely. The Fire Nation. It's not so different from Konoha. Feed the people lies to keep the war machine alive. Footsteps echoed nearby. Soldiers appeared, clad in dark red, black, and brown segmented armor. Horned helmets. Skull-like faceplates. One glanced at Sasuke. His voice was bitter. Weak. Hard to believe they share the same blood. Sasuke narrowed his eyes. Just as he opened his mouth to speak, a black feather drifted down from above. It landed at his feet without a sound. He crouched, fingers brushing over it. The feather was soft, but frayed. Lord Rui, what are you doing? We need to hurry. You have to eat, Ying Yue said. Ying Yue, are there crows around the royal palace? She blinked. No, my lord. Only hawks. If a crow came this close, it would be hunted immediately. Sasuke held the feather up. Can you see this? Ying Yue furrowed her brow. There's nothing there. Forgive me, but could you be hallucinating? He frowned, staring at the feather in his hand. Then he let it fall. Without a word, he turned and walked on. Ying Yue followed in silence. Illusions and sickness. I suppose they go hand in hand. As they walked in silence, an entranceway came into view. The air was rich with the aroma of spices, warm and earthy. Somewhere inside, the steady drip of a faucet echoed like clockwork. Beyond the doorway, the kitchen was alive with motion. Cooks bustled about, dicing vegetables, stirring pots, and shouting orders above the hiss of boiling water and the clang of metal. Excuse me, Ying Yue said, stepping forward. One of the cooks turned, curious but welcoming. Yes. Young Master Rui will need his usual, porridge with lots of fiber. And some tea would be good too. The cook blinked, clearly confused. Young Master Rui. Yes, the young clan leader of the Lishan clan, Ying Yue replied, glancing behind her. But there was no Rui. She frowned. Young master. You mean the falling Lishan clan? Can't believe they still think that name holds any value to the Fire Nation, one of the cooks muttered. They only exist to avoid inbreeding, another added with a chuckle. Same with the Kyoshizo clan. No real strength, just there to look pretty. The others laughed quietly, but Ying Yue had heard enough. She stepped forward, eyes sharp. Excuse me, but speaking of royalty with such disrespect, even behind their backs, borders on treason. By Fire Nation law, that could warrant an Agni Kai. The room went still. I may be retired as a firebender, she continued, voice cold, but I will defend my post and the honor of my clan without hesitation. You will recognize your own. Silence hung for a moment. Then, one by one, the cooks returned to their tasks. Ying Yue turned and walked away, her steps quick, her hands clenched. Where are you, Lord Rui? He couldn't have gone far. If the city is as magnificent as its wall, Ba Sing She must be something to behold. I hope you all may see it someday, if we don't burn it to the ground first. Ursa smiled faintly as she read the letter aloud. Azula and the boy, who Sasuke assumed to be her brother, chuckled at the comment. The tension in the room eased, just slightly, as Ursa continued. Until then, enjoy these gifts. For Zuko, a pearl dagger from the general who surrendered when we broke through the outer wall. Note the inscription, and the superior craftsmanship. The boy, Zuko, stepped forward as two servants carried a pillow between them, presenting the gifts. He picked up the dagger and turned it in his hands before reading the inscription engraved on the blade. Never give up without a fight. Sasuke, watching silently from the shadows of the corridor, scoffed internally. Ironic, considering the general surrendered. He had only recently heard this story, slipping away from Ying Yue's supervision, and now found himself oddly intrigued by this royal family. There was something theatrical about them, as if they lived their lives half for power, half for performance. Then came Azula's turn. Ursa read the next line, and for Azula, a new friend. She wears the latest fashion, for Earth Kingdom girls. Azula's expression soured instantly, as if she had just spotted the remains of a drunkard's vomit on a royal carpet. Her nose wrinkled, her lip curled. The servants stepped forward, holding out a stiff, doll-like figure, dressed in green, with beady black eyes and a smile. It was the kind of gift meant to be charming, but to Azula, it was an insult dressed in silk. Blah. If Uncle doesn't make it back from the war, Azula said casually, then Dad would be next in line to be Fire Lord, wouldn't he? Ursa's expression tightened. She leaned forward, her voice soft but firm. Azula, we don't speak that way. It would be awful if Uncle Iroh didn't return. And besides, Fire Lord Azulon is in perfect health. Zuko chimed in, frowning at his sister. How would you like it if Cousin Lu Ten wished Dad would die? Both mother and brother looked at her disapprovingly. Azula, unbothered, glanced down at the Earth Kingdom doll still clutched in her hand. Its green dress now looked more like a target than a gift. She narrowed her eyes. I still think our dad would make a much better Fire Lord than his royalty-loving kookiness. With that, the doll burst into flames in her palm. The charred remains drifted to the floor like snowflakes turned to ash. Sasuke, watching from the shadows, thought quietly to himself. She doesn't feel empathy. Not like most people. It's like someone told her emotions were weaknesses, and that only power mattered. Suddenly, Sasuke felt a firm grip on his arm, yanking him out of the shadows. A sharp gasp followed. Young Master Rui. Be careful. Why did you run off? Ying Yue scolded, her voice tight with worry. Her eyes darted to the scorched spot on the floor where he'd been hiding, blackened and smoldering. Had she been a moment later, he might have been cooked alive. Before Sasuke could say a word, another voice cut in. Oh, hello, brother, Azula said, turning her head with a lazy smile, as if this were all a game. Did you enjoy the show? I thought it was getting a bit chilly. A little fire to warm us up never hurts. Sasuke stared at her. There was no remorse. No concern. Just satisfaction. Like someone testing the limits of how far they could go.